The President of the Republic, Paul Biya, has ordered sanctions for soldiers and vigilante members involved in the brutal killing of 3 pregnant women and 10 children during a reconnaissance mission in Gabu village in the northwest region on the 14th of February 2020. This follows a release of a report instructed by the head of state to shed light on the issue amidst pressure from human rights groups and some political actors. Tonight we get the reaction of the president of the Cameroon People's Party, Edith Kawala, in this newscast. Also, local languages are playing an important role in the fight against COVID-19. The Cameroon Association for Bible Translation and Literacy, CAPTAL, has been producing booklets and audios to reach out to off-grid communities and villages. Those are top stories. Good evening and thanks for joining us. You're watching the primetime newscast on STV. 4 soldiers and about 10 vigilante members will stand trial following their implication in the killing of 10 children and 3 pregnant women during a reconnaissance mission in Gabu village in the northwest region on the 14th of February 2020. President Paul Biya ordered the sanctions after the results of the findings under his behest were made public. That was yesterday. Josephine Benzi read through the report and brings out the highlights in this report.
President Paul Biya, in an official statement yesterday, frowned at the gruesome act of some elements of the Cameroon military who were perpetrators of the Ngabu massacre in collaboration with vigilante groups and the population to bring an untold pain to that part of Cameroon. An investigation page opened on the 17th of February where the minister delegate visited the affected zone. The delegation was a rough melange of the civil society, non-governmental organizations, as well as the international community. The delegation went to Bamenda, Kumbo, Nkambe, Ntumbo, and Ngabu, where varying points of view were sought. Amongst the 9 observations, Battalion Commander Nsoesie of the 52nd Legion in Kambe knew the sensitive nature of that zone that harbors different communities, yet failed to supervise the actions that brought pain to the community. Sergeant Babangida, Gendarme Sanding Cyril, and first-class soldier Haranga participated in the operation that caused the death of many persons and a fire outbreak that razed many houses. Thus, discipline ought to be meted against Nsoesie as well as the arrest of Sergeant Babangida. President Biya has once more expressed his heartfelt condolence as he prescribes an exhumation of corpses for proper burial, a reinforcement of security in Gabu, and thanks the investigation committee for making it a success.
Political actors and civil society activists have been reacting to the release of the report on the Gabu incident by the President of the Republic. The President of the Cameroon People's Party, Edith Kawala, has acclaimed the move from President Paul Biya. Josephine Benzi has more in this report.
A sigh of relief can be felt in the political sector after the publication of yesterday's report of the Ngabu massacre in the Ndonga Mantung division that claimed the lives of over 20 Cameroonians on the night of February 14. Edith Kabangwala calls it an armor of victory to all who sought justice on behalf of the departed.
It is a victory for all the other human rights defenders and political parties, because we were many to stand up and say this situation is unacceptable and we must have justice in Gabu. No army deploys itself. No army decides on level of force. And what we know is that Gabu is just a symbol of what has been happening in the northwest and southwest. The populations in these 2 regions have been telling us that the army is carrying out summary executions. They have been telling us that their villages are being burnt. And today we have the proof through Gabu that this is actually the case.
The investigation into the bloody 14 February incident, she says, took a longer time to be investigated than originally requested by the international community.
The procedure was, of course, far too long. the commission was given 8 days to work by the president, and normally we should have had that report within 8 to 10 days maximum. So our government is always late on everything, and we do not exclude the fact that they may have their own political reasons for bringing out that report at this time. We all know that their response to COVID-19 so far has been catastrophic, so they may be trying to disrupt attention for us to be talking about something else. But we as Cameroonians, we are intelligent, we know our rights, and we are focused. So it is not the fact that the report came out now that will take our attention away from the fact that actually the ultimate goal is to bring an end to this regime.
The Northwest region, which has been one of the most affected regions of the Anglophone crisis and records the bloodiest scenarios since 2016, has still not been completely liberated from the crisis. This report by the president is one of many other reports inhabitants in the crisis-hit zones hope are released to appease the hearts of disgruntled Anglophones.
Was celebrating the beauty of love on the 14th of February 2020, terror and bloodshed reigned in Gabu village, a village in Donga Mantung division of the Northwest region. The killing of pregnant women and children sparked outrage as political actors and civil society activists pressured the government to establish the truth behind the gruesome murder. Our reporter Catherine Kone revisits the incident in this report.
It was on the 14th of February 2020 that a tragic and unforgettable incident struck the Gabu village, a locality in the Donga Mantung division, northwest region of Cameroon. 27 persons are said to have perished after a bloody attack waged against the community. Among those killed during the raid was a pregnant woman and children. The grievous incident led to a widespread of condemnation from Cameroonians and international groups. Due to the several accusations levied on the Cameroonian forces of law and order, the military spokesperson, Colonel Siri Atomfak, declared that the barbaric act was orchestrated by separatist fighters, whom he equally accused of carrying similar actions in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. He emphasized that the information attributing the brutal raid on government military forces is all fake news. This after the Cameroon army equally claimed it was an unfortunate incident as a collateral consequence of the ongoing security operations in these regions. According to the army's report, the incident occurred following the incursion of a group of 6 elements of the defense forces into a house in Gabu, which they said had been transformed into a fortified camp, housing illicit goods, arms and ammunition, as well as stock of narcotics. He said the response of the forces of law enforcement elements was to remove 7 terrorists at the scene. Fighting thus erupted until several fuel containers exploded, followed by violent fire that affected several homes, thereby killing several persons, including a pregnant woman and children. Several reports on the tragic incident urged the President of the Republic in creating a joint commission to investigate the gruesome act. The memories of Gabu still remains fresh in the minds of Cameroonians like it just happened yesterday.
The Cameroon Association for Bible Translation and Literacy, CAPTAL, has joined the fight against COVID-19 by producing booklets and audios in different local languages, reaching out to off-grid communities and villages. It is, of course, one of a telling testimony to the fact that local languages can play a vital role in curbing the pandemic. We have details in this report.
The General Director of the Cameroon Association for Bible Translation and Literacy, Emmanuel Lufang, says supporting the government and other organizations in combating the ravaging COVID-19, CAPTAL has sensitized over 21 communities in their local languages for a better understanding of the natives via booklets and audios on the corona pandemic. To intensify the rapid spread of the sensitization message, CAPTAL equally made use of some social media platforms.
CAPTAL has taken the initiative to produce a document that gives some highlights about what COVID-19 is, how it is transmitted, how people can protect themselves from COVID-19, and measures that people can take if they get infected. So CAPTA has done that document, and we are sending it out to different languages. So the document was done in French and English, and it's been translated to over 70 local languages.
Visiting their production room, where audio messages have been translated to local languages before sending to communities. Capital isn't exempted from the other organizations whose activities have greatly been affected by the outbreak of COVID-19.
With the idea of social distancing, we had a number of activities that have been suspended. Normally, CAPTA works through organizing trainings for communities. Now we can't organize those trainings anymore because of social distancing. There are no gatherings. It has slowed down some of our literacy activities because we have 86 communities in which we are running mother tongue literacy programs. These literacy programs have slowed down a bit because gathering is limited.
Note should be taken that with Capital, hopes are gained knowing that those in the suburbs with no mastery of Cameroon's 2 official languages will certainly have information on how to combat the deadly corona pandemic.
Economists on their part have raised fears that the coronavirus could trigger a food crisis if the economic shocks emanating from the pandemic are not properly dealt with. Ajwa Ali has more in this report.
The global pandemic coronavirus is relatively touching all aspects in life, with the Global World Report on Food Crisis announcing that some 265 million people living in low and middle income countries may be facing food crisis by the end of the year 2020. Cameroonian economics Edimo Mokori says food crisis may double if the COVID-19 pandemic persists.
Noirs voient déjà le ciel bleu parce qu'ils ne connaissaient plus la notion de ciel bleu. Et M. Maigre parlait de la crise alimentaire, mais en fait la crise alimentaire...
We now see the impact and the necessity to protect what we have. This crisis haven't done more harm than good. But the world food crisis is not only related to coronavirus pandemic, but it is an existing problem, and Cameroon is not left out.
La Chine ou l'Inde ou les pays occidentaux d'une manière générale aujourd'hui sont caractérisés par la vieillesse.
Despite the authorization given to cargo, aircraft and boats transporting food items into the country, economists say that measures to suspend the importation of animal products from countries affected by the pandemic is a good option, but there will be limitations of flow of food in our local markets.
Jusqu'ici, l'Afrique est au départ de toute la civilisation récente en Occident. Tout s'est basé sur la production agricole.
Africa is feeling the impact, even though they have been hit several times since colonialism. We know the importance of food protection.
Nous savons ce qui pratiquement à la portée et à la merci, à notre merci et à la portée totale de ces pays. Nous savons ce qu'a coûté chacune des guerres mondiales à l'Afrique. Je rappelle que la Première Guerre mondiale aura quand même...
However, from all indications, Cameroon will not be the only country still to deal with the food crisis in line with coronavirus. It is a world issue.
In the country's political capital, Yaoundé, bookshops are facing the worst of times due to the coronavirus. Our reporter Emmanuel Kijinsi took the pulse of the situation at Port Central and presents his observations in this report.
For close to 6 weeks into government's coronavirus lockdown, bookshops in Yaoundé are now reduced to a shadow of their former selves. In this once booming bookshop here at the Post Central neighborhood, business has fallen drastically. Schools on which this line of business largely depends are still on suspension. For close to 2 hours of our visit here, no customer was spotted. We are suffering a great deal because this business is no longer booming, given that schools on which it solely depends has been suspended. It's a pity, given that in a day, we can't sell 10,000 francs, whereas we have tax hanging over our heads, not leaving out domestic demands, including rents. The bookshop keeper also cried out that huge consignments of items which offices often demand are being blocked owing to the COVID-19 restrictive measures. Given that offices too have limited their activities, demands for their items have dropped drastically. Even some ministers no longer go to their offices because of the coronavirus scare. The situation is appalling. I appeal on government to come to our rescue. In this desperate business situation, he appeals on government to help out by dropping the price of fuel, which he believes will extensively ease other sectors of the economy. I appeal on government to help us by reducing the price of fuel. I think this will bring relief to many other sectors of the economy. For example, if government reduces fuel to 400 francs and taxi fare to 100 francs, it will go a long way to help. The hard times brought about by the coronavirus invasion has left millions of employees and businesses miserable. Nonetheless, statistics around the world indicate that the restrictive measures put in place are yielding fruits, even that gradually COVID-19 positive cases are slowly dropping. Therefore, in these hard times, hope shouldn't be lost.
Now, medical experts have warned against the application of self-medication in the treatment of COVID-19, especially with traditional medicine. Doing so, they say, could be fatal without adequate knowledge on the nature of the disease. Ajwa Ali has more.
As the COVID-19 cases keep rising in the country, Cameroonians have turned to different options like self-medicating to stay away from the disease without understanding the potential risk involved.
All type of herbs, cankeleba, which is used to produce chloroquine. People have been using medicinal plants, which we are not against, but the way they use them, there's no scientific backing that it heals. We should be very careful that viral infection generally has no treatment. Your immunity will and conditions that could treat these thromboembolic diseases. I think that is what I can say for now. Self-medication is not only dangerous for COVID-19, but it's dangerous in any other disease that you don't master the pathophysiology and then you go on to take treatment. You don't know the dosage. According to the dosage, you don't know the duration and your age.
Coronavirus, according to medical reports, reveals that people should not use antibiotics nor chloroquine without medical consultation as means of prevention or staying away from the diseased.
We could drink a lot of water, we can take just vitamin C and we boost our immunity and viral infection can disappear. If we don't have any underlying disease like HIV, hepatitis or diabetes or even kidney failure or even hypertension. The pathophysiology, to understand very well how to treat COVID-19, you must understand the physiopathology of the disease. This germ, which is very small.
However, as of now, there are no vaccines that can protect against COVID-19 and no medication has been approved so far to treat the disease. The World Health Organization reports say the most appropriate measures is to respect basic measures set in place by government and when sick, consult the nearest medical facility.
Despite sensitization to raise awareness on the dangers of COVID-19 in Cameroon, some inhabitants in Douala say they are not yet conscious of the reality of the pandemic. Our reporter Katrin Kone questions some inhabitants and now reports.
With Cameroon recording more than 1,000 cases of COVID-19, the existence of the pandemic still remains doubtful for some Cameroonians. Despite the ravishing effect caused by the coronavirus, Douala city dwellers revealed Cameroon is not having any coronavirus case. It seems like there is no virus in Cameroon because when we see videos from China or France, people walk and fall. But in Cameroon, I have never seen a person fall on the road. To conclude that there is a coronavirus case in Cameroon, I have not seen any. To others, the closing down of borders is a strong evidence to show that coronavirus truly exists in Cameroon. It's a virus that exists, reasons why I am protecting myself from it, and just to let those that believe in the existence of this virus to protect themselves as well. Apparently, there are still some people who are not aware of the virus, but I call on everyone to know the dreaded disease exists. We realize the whole world is in confinement due to the pandemic. It signifies the existence of the virus. If it wasn't existing, it would not have been affecting the whole world. The locals revealed they are doing all they can to adapt with the measures to curb the spread of the pandemic. Concerning the measures put in place by the government, we are trying our best to respect the measures. The truth is, we can't implement it 100% because we go out on a daily basis. However, the government have continued to call on the population to join hands so as to stop the spread of coronavirus in Cameroon.
Country, China's alleged underreporting and misinformation about the coronavirus, which broke out in Wuhan, is becoming a heated topic in the U.S. presidential debate. President Donald Trump and his Democrat rival Joe Biden have launched dueling campaign ads, accusing each other of not doing enough to curb the pandemic. More with the VOA.
President Trump's re-election team recently released an ad revisiting themes from his 2016 campaign, attacking China and accusing his Democratic rival, this time former Vice President Joe Biden, of corruption.
If that worked last time, they may be thinking that it has a chance to work again this time.
Trump won the 2016 presidential election in part by blaming China for the loss of U.S. manufacturing jobs and characterizing then Democratic nominee Hillary Clinton as corruptly tied to corporate interests. The Trump campaign ad targeting Biden contrasts the president's decision to cut off travel from China to prevent the spread of the coronavirus with his rival's opposition to the travel ban. But the ad also uses out-of-context statements from Biden to portray him as soft on China, and it accuses him of being financially compromised based on unproven allegations that his son Hunter Biden inked a billion-dollar deal with a Chinese state-run business. Before the coronavirus pandemic, Trump had been touting strong economic growth during his presidency as a key campaign issue. Now, widespread business closures imposed to slow the outbreak have left millions of Americans out of work. Polls show the president's approval rating falling over what a majority of Americans see as his inconsistent handling of the public health and economic crises. Trump and congressional Republicans insist China should face consequences for masking the severity of the COVID-19 health crisis and spreading disinformation that the virus came from the U.S. But Trump's critics see this messaging as an attempt to shift blame away from the slow U.S. response to the pandemic, which has claimed more than 42,000 American lives.
The critique of the Trump administration implies that had China been perfectly transparent, the United States would have been perfectly strategic in its response. And we know that not to be true.
While accusing Biden of corrupt financial interests, critics say Trump and his family are less than transparent about their own business dealings around the world, noting the president has yet to release any tax returns. But Trump's argument that his personal wealth actually frees him from outside influence continues to resonate with many of his supporters.
That's a fairly common populist strategy, is to sort of say, they're all corrupt. I was too, but I'm going to be corrupt on your behalf, basically.
The Biden campaign has countered with its own ad. It accuses Trump of ignoring early intelligence reports warning of the coronavirus threat and of praising Chinese President Xi Jinping in the midst of the crisis to preserve a recently inked trade deal between the U.S. and China. Both campaigns are increasingly critical of Beijing, reflecting growing public anger in the U.S. at China as the origin for the deadly virus that is infecting millions, causing much of the world economy to shut down. Brian Patton, VOA News, Washington.
And that wraps up this edition of the Primetime Newscast on STV. Thank you very much for watching. More news comes up in the French language at 8 p.m. with Winnie Narcisse Moto. From the entire news and production team in Douala, have a good night and stay safe.